Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns. This is a Phil and Steve edition, and so we're going to have all kinds of great conversation that sometimes we don't even know what we're going to have yet. So this is a good day. Steve,
yeah,
it's great to be sitting around the table. It's sunny in the Albany Park neighborhood. So
it is, and I think we're heading into some good fair weather.
We are.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be in the 90s, though, this weekend.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
I don't know why it couldn't just be 65 or 70 throughout the summer, but...
Not going to lie, the last week of 50s, like when it went from 83 to 53.
Yeah.
It was good. But hey, I got the backyard project all done in fair weather, a nice chilly breeze coming off of Lake Michigan, and so yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
So we're following up our season 2, episode 6 with Chris Fordyce.
Right.
And I had mentioned on that we might dive into, for our listeners who are interested, just you and I both have a faith background. And some of this stuff that we're talking about is really kind of crazy. And so how do we reconcile our faith system with the unsolved mysteries of the universe?
Right. And that is a big question. It's a big question to be able to explore and say, how are we handling this? And I think it's always good to wrestle with big questions. I mean, I remember when we asked Chris that, and he said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that was ultimately, and he had more to say on but yet at the same time, it was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, sometimes there's those areas, and some, like, you don't have to know. Or maybe you don't have to always say, I'm going to wrestle with this in this way, but like I think it's good to be able to challenge yourself at that also in that aspect and say, let's not be complacent and say I'm fine with I don't know. Like, let's dive into the I don't know then, and maybe you can do the same out there. Dive into the I don't know.
I had a gentleman who was talking to me one time about the Enneagram, and as we were discussing it, he was probably in the first month of diving into explore what that was all about, and there was a major trend in the U.S. at the time in regards to that, and he actually, after listening to Richard Rohr's, I think it's a 4 or 5 YouTube video. Somebody took the DVDs and converted it to YouTube, and with permission, I understand. Yeah. And after he went through that, and then he knew that I considered myself a 9, and he said, I'm wondering if because you're a 9, why you ascribe to mysticism is because you're just too lazy to figure out what's really true and what's going on. And you know what? Kudos to him for feeling okay in the conversation to be able to just put it out there, and say, hey, by the way, you say this, but and so I think it's really interesting that you bring up this point, because we do ascribe and are okay with the mystery within our faith structure.
Oh, yeah.
To know that we can't explain everything, but I think where people get confused about being okay with the mystery is that sometimes people interpret the English language in a way where they're like, oh, so you're okay with the mystery and not being able to explain it. They insert in their head that what we're really trying to do, or what we're saying is, we're good with it and we're not trying to figure anything out.
Yeah.
And that's not being at peace and okay with mystery. Right. I picked up a magazine because we have our little magazine here on like strange things in the world.
Yeah.
And I picked up a new one on unsolved mysteries. And I like that word unsolved. Because again, if we go back to Curse of Oak Island, they're finding out new information.
Right.
They don't have the answers yet. They haven't located treasure yet, but they're committed to. And again, the old, I believe it's the older brother. He's like, the treasure here is the story.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I love the idea of these mysteries are just unsolved.
Right.
So.
And can we be okay with unsolving? Because I think some people try to jump in and just break it all the time. Now, because that would be their saying towards, you know, like his saying towards you, like, are you just too lazy to discover? But I think that's the pushback, and you can be fine with someone interjecting that and saying, no, like, I'm still studying. I'm still exploring. Like, I'm trying to dig into that, but I'm also not just trying to rush to the end and trying to get to a something that I believe is the solution.
Right.
And that you've ultimately just made up because you wanted to break it. You wanted to break the tension. You wanted to break the mystery. You wanted to break all of that. And you're saying, not just get me to the end because I'd like to know the answer.
Yeah. That is one of the things that, you know, and really when he brought it up to me, it hit me so hard, I didn't even have a retort or any way to like work through it. I was taking in what he was saying. And, you know, to your point, you know, you hear people say, you know, life is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
And you and I actually earlier today were talking about, hey, emotionally, how does it feel when you get knocked off your routine? But I think that's one of the truths of humanity that I'm bumping into in this season of life is how much framework. I like to be a free spirit, but I am a free spirit with structure.
Right.
You know,
That's a good way to put it.
I think what I'm really saying is that I like to be able to be in control of my schedule. I don't like it when people make my schedule. You know, I mean, like, and that's me being just honest or you know, more transparent to be able to say, wow, because what really knocks me out for a loop, or, you know, just, man, if I want to get to a bad attitude quick, all I need is, you know, somebody say, hey, you need to do this and be here at this time and this, and I'm like, but I had plans for this and this and this, you
Right.
know, and stuff. And so anyway.
Yeah, I tend to really enjoy routines. Yeah, I mean, and not like I don't like adventure, because I do like that. But it's also like I like to plan out like when I'm going to have an adventure, not just have it dropped on me. You know, like I like a planned adventure. Like I'm going to spend this time now and I don't know what's going to happen. Like
Right.
At least then I can mentally put myself there and say, that's what's going to happen. Like it's open.
Yeah, and we both even have something in common that we're going to be traveling a little bit.
Right.
And so then what gets knocked off? Our normal taping schedules for
Right.
Cut Daisies and Unicorns and stuff like that. And so I don't know if there's anyone out there who could identify and say, oh yeah, it's not just about writing the list down and checking off the box. I like the structure. But going back to parenting,
Right.
I found that a consistency in parenting was a structure that my children thrived in. I mean, they probably didn't like it necessarily all the time, but
Right.
but you know, like you can't take a child from a bedtime at 6 p.m. to midnight the next night to 9 o'clock the next night to 5 o'clock. You know, and I personally never put children down at 5 or 6 p.m. I mean, children only sleep so long. So to me, the earlier to bed,
You really are up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, right? And so, but then I find, and I think that that's another thing. If we go back to faith and faith structures,
Right.
there's where I think humanity gets into this really, not only is it predictable, but it feels safe. It feels like this thing that I can be in and be okay. And so just like a child, I end up feeling better within a faith structure of organized religion or, what have you. A lot of times on the podcast, though, I speak in a very deconstructed, broken format, and do that purposefully. But then again, there's where a dualistic mind can really get upset with our conversations that we're having, because the people of faith oftentimes want concrete things laid out to know hey, where do you land on this? And it's like, man, it's like trying to grab a fish. It seems slippery and wishy-washy and all of that. But for our listeners who are people of faith, just know that is not the intent in our conversations. The intent is to use different vocabulary to allow for people to get bumped out of what would be their normal, and just to be able to consider.
Right.
Do you have thoughts on why that direction is a direction that you like in this format?
Yeah, so for me, when I agree with you about the structure of a faith system. So and everybody has a faith system, whether or not you're a theist or an atheist.
Yeah.
And so everyone's got a faith structure. You have faith in what's gonna like your worldview. And so it's always helpful for me in a faith system to be able to think about, what does it mean then to have some of that structure? Well, it helps me to understand, some of the things that gets put before me.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at suffering in the world or suffering in my life, and I'm saying the faith structure that I'm a part of then helps me to interpret it, to understand what's happening. It doesn't mean that I'm okay with it. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be like, I don't know if I ever really want to celebrate it, but like I can understand it. And so it helps me to, to look at the world. So when people then are jumping on it and saying, well, but your faith, like faith or even organized religion has led to, a lot of world wars or whatever it might be. There's been people killed on behalf of organized religion, and you're looking at it. But even the faith structure that I have helps me to interpret that. Like, I'm not okay with people using faith as a means by which they can then go and hurt people. That's not a part of my system. It's not a part of my being.
Right.
And so that helps me to understand, like this should lead us to greater conversation.
Yeah.
Greater conversation with where we should be unsettled in that system, and still say, where can we ask bigger questions then and have greater discussions that aren't going to just be a part of the dualistic mind and dualistic situations that occur.
Yeah. Well, I think really this is a small stepping stone in the conversation that helps people. Hopefully, we're raising awareness, and so like one of the greatest finds in my life in the last decade was Father Richard Rohr. We've name dropped him countless times.
Right.
We did the research to see if we could have him as a guest. And due to his age and his health and the demands for him, we got a lovely... no, that was Science Mike we got the response back from. We did the research for Richard Rohr and found out that he just flat out, it's a hard line, no. Like, he's not even like reading all the emails that come into him. But he's a Franciscan priest. And it still cracks me up because Tom Bryant, he's a pastor in the Methodist Church. I was just being blown away by Rohr's daily writings on his devotional and just all these different things. Had watched his the Cosmic Christ on YouTube and just being blown away on how this. I, in my mind, considered him a Catholic priest. But the Franciscans, although they are Catholic, they're not Catholic priests. They're Franciscan monks. It's a sect, S-E-C-T, on the fringe of Catholicism, outside of the church and yet in the church. So this is, once again, we start telling this story. The Enneagram was a practice of spiritual directors that originated in the Catholic Church. And so in his teaching, like, he tells a story about how in the early 70s, he was taught the Enneagram. I mean, like, we're talking, it's 2021.
Right.
This dude's been on, in discovery. But I said to Tom, I'm like, this dude is so out there. How is he still a priest in the Catholic Church? And he's like, dude, he's a Franciscan monk. They've always been out there. And so, but again, if I had stuck to the structure of only thinking one way and in that box, there's no way I would have the joy of having learned from Father Richard Rohr. When I grew up, I grew up Baptist. And so when I grew up, like, oh my gosh, there's no way you could even have pretty much friends who are Catholic. It's like, well, all these people are going to hell.
Right.
And I'm like, and I know that there are people of faith who would say, oh, they wouldn't say this, but I'll say it just to ruin their tongue. Damn straight they're going to hell. Right. Because people who think that wouldn't say damn straight.
You'd be offended by damn.
Yes. But, I grab this up and think about it, and if you're listening to this, you're probably already upset and you're shutting us off, so I'll just take it one step further.
Might as well.
Yeah. So who really believes that Mother Teresa is in hell?
Right.
There are people who do. Because the structure of the church that she aligned with, they would say that all of her good deeds were just her good works trying to make her way into heaven. And yet, if you read some of the quotes of this woman,
right,
there's no question that she had an intimate relationship with, and I'll break it down CDU style, with an unseen deity that had moved in to provide redemption through the Christ, who was a human manifestation of the Christ as Jesus. And so, anyway, it's just stepping stones, and how can our minds, to use a conservative view word, I'll say, be transformed, because a conservative view mind may say, I'm offended if you say evolution or evolve. Rohr again blew me away. Rohr uses the word transformation, salvation, and enlightenment interchangeably.
Right.
And it just blew me away.
Yeah, I was thinking when you brought up Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Because after she had died, her father confessor, right? So she would always have somebody who she would go to and share her, talk about her sin and, all of that stuff. But he shared her documents, which I questioned whether he should or not. But
Right.
he shared it with after she had died, and it talked about her depth of doubt too.
Yeah.
And some people were like, oh, see, like even Mother Teresa didn't really believe. Like, no, like sharing of her doubt didn't mean that equated to that she didn't believe that there was a God.
Right.
Like, no, this is normal part of humanity.
Yeah.
And this is actually the beauty that was shared in these.
Yeah.
And like, I guess you can say there's always going to be two sides how you're going to look at it, but to me, it was like, no, you see like the depth of this woman.
Yeah.
That you don't just see like, well, there she is. She's serving the poorest of the poor.
Yeah.
And in a city that was really, had a lot of brokenness.
Yeah.
And you'd say, why wouldn't somebody say, man, there's got to be something that's wrong here because these people shouldn't have to live like this.
Yeah.
Like, and she questioned it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it to be able to say, you know what, I'm trying to sort through this and I'm having a hard time.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
And I think that more people need to be able to be confronted with it sometimes and say, let's start having those big questions. Because if you're not struggling with some of this, then you're probably just closing your eyes to it and going along with, whatever you've been told or taught.
Well, and I think that we can take that and then move into that if someone's listening to this podcast and saying, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be able, but I can't. Then, I would interject that, there's probably some reasons why you can't.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just move into an encouragement of what does it take for you to move into that you could. In regards to that, some people have just never had a good experience with vulnerability.
Right.
And don't have the opportunity to have had a context of thriving when being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, one of the places that brought me to be able to be vulnerable publicly was my role at Gloria Day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that up until you and I started doing an exchange, usually during announcements, is when it happened.
Right.
And you spent a lot of time in the Family Life Center at the H3 service, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's probably where it was H3 Head, Hand, and Heart. It was a young families geared oriented service.
Yeah.
And then just, it's kicking off. And as life gets busy, you knew that I was sitting in meetings that you had made or you hadn't because of different calls and stuff like that and whatever. And you'd be like, hey, am I missing anything else? Steve, fill me in.
Right.
What things are coming up that I need to be able to be aware of?
Uh-huh.
And we'd start doing this banter that soon started to look like Johnny Carson in The Sidekick, and so we would do that. Then what was happening is the senior pastor at the time, Ron Burcham,
mm-hmm.
he started noticing that the wall between the Lutheran term for the stage is called chancel, but the platform, the wall was being torn down.
Mm-hmm.
And he flat out, he's like, I need that wall to come down in the sanctuary. He goes, but it's noticeable. He goes, how you lead worship and how you're connecting others to God in worship was happening because we tore the curtain.
Right.
We took out the big old malls and started breaking down on the wall, and it was vulnerability that did that. Well, here's the thing. I can recognize people's woundedness and when they've shared and they've been hurt by others, and then why share if you're going to be hurt by others? The crazy part for me in that vulnerability, as I started sharing anecdotes and life stories and different things like that, is I got positive feedback from people week after week after week. And there's an art to that where you don't share everything all the time.
Right.
You don't, in a worship leader scenario, you're not the person preaching. So your share time needs to be a lot less than the message. But then, I just started heading down that road, and to the point where then there were assignments given to me, where the pastors at the time realized, hey, he's not going to speak blasphemy or heresy. We can trust him, and we'd like this to be spoken into. And with age brackets and different things like that, it worked out. And so I had the positive feedback. And so then I get onto a podcast and I'm just like, here's all this stuff. Trust me, there's stuff that I'm not sharing too.
Always. Keep some of it in reserve.
Oh, man.
But I agree with you about the safe spaces.
Yeah.
And I think I learned about this. Learning your community, learning the people that are around. And there's some people who are going to be red light people. You're going to share a limited amount. And then there's like the yellow light. I mean, if you're going by that system, you're like, it's okay to be able to share some, right? To be able to learn what that means in that community.
Yeah.
And then you want to have green light people.
Yeah.
And those are probably going to be a smaller crowd.
Yeah.
It's going to be a smaller group. Who are your green light people?
Yeah.
Who are the people that you can share your brokenness, your woundedness, and to be completely vulnerable with people? Because if you don't have it, that means you're keeping all of that in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're never being able to say, you know what, I need to show you like this, like, I don't know. Like, this is where I'm struggling. Like, I don't even know why I'm struggling, but I know I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, if you don't have those people, then what happens? Right. And then you keep it to yourself, or you suppress your feelings, or you put it somewhere else, or you put it into, work, or you put it into this, or you're always trying to find those other, attachments, and some of them aren't healthy.
Yeah, it's true. So we stumble down the path, into this to say, it's okay to say you don't know.
Right.
It's great if you have people to talk to say, can we discover? I don't know the answers to these things, but can I discover? And again, the faith system that I grew up in, and I've made the reference before. Actually, John, our producer, he laughs every time. We don't drink, we don't chew, we don't go with girls who do. I never went to a high school dance. I think I was so disappointed when Star Wars came out that I couldn't go to the theater to be able to see it. And we've talked about some of those tensions that have occurred in my growing up. But I mean, even to the point in biology where, like, when evolution was talked about, and actually my science teacher who taught biology, Lee Kaler, fantastic believer, incredible man of faith. And yet he taught in biology, he taught evolution. And I remember going and talking to my pastor time, like, what do I do if on the test it asks me about evolution? And, and then I went to my teacher and I said, what am I going to do with my faith in regards to this? And he looked at me and he said, Steve, all I'm asking you to do is answer the questions that are being taught through this biology book. He goes, I'm never going to put on the test, do you believe in evolution? Because right there was that was a line that I was like, got to stand for the truth, creation, 7-day creation, and
Right.
the Genesis project, chapter, and so like there was that part of and so there was an ingrained structure. Now, I mean, I've moved in so many different ways. I mean, as far as how I've come to the place where I'm at right now.
Right.
And, it's just one of those things where, yeah, I mean, to get in and to unpack that whole thing is just probably 3 hours worth of autobiography that nobody needs to know right now.
Right.
But yeah, I got really, and to me, that's the hilariousness of, if the universe has a sense of humor, which it does,
It does.
then we have to come to a place where we're like, oh, God's just teaching me to laugh at myself, and to be able to do that. And so, yeah,
Yeah, but I think people, I think that the stricter parts of that and everything being confined, like, leads a lot of people when they start to grow up and grow out of it.
yeah,
Right? That they're saying, like, well, this is garbage, so now I need to throw this away and go to the opposite pendulum swing.
yeah,
And you're like, but hold on, like, hold up,
Yeah.
like there is some room in the middle of this pendulum swing. Don't, like, and that's where I think that what we're always trying to do is, like, question, like, and I know that it's an overused term, but thinking outside the box, right? I mean, I know it's overused.
yeah,
But if you've been stuck in a system and saying there's nothing wrong with being able to have a conversation that's going to be outside of that.
yeah,
So, like, bringing up evolution and understanding evolution, and still going to people, and this is where I started that journey for myself, is being able to ask scientists, like, talk to people who have been studying this longer than I have.
yeah,
I mean, I had science in high school, science in college, and yet
Yeah.
even after that, you're saying, all right, so how do I sort through this? Well, talk to people. And like you said, your science teacher was a believer, and so you're saying, how do you do this?
yeah,
How do you talk about this? I mean, are there things that you're embracing that you can't necessarily embrace over here with people of your church? Does that conflict with your conscience when you're like, all right, well, I can't share everything over here because it would freak people out?
right,
Well, why?
yeah,
Why can't we have these conversations? Why can't there be a bigger discussion? And I think that's what we're always trying to do here. I mean, we're not, right now we're talking about faith, but we've talked about racial issues. We've talked about all kinds of stuff that we're trying to say, question, get a bigger question, get
Yeah.
a bigger discussion.
yeah,
Because if you're always thinking in terms of the box, then there's really not much to think outside of that.
yeah,
I mean, is everything black and white? I would hope most people would say no. Like, it can't be just this or this.
yeah,
Dualism.
yeah. Well, it really is a quandary that people get caught in, and I guess if we're like turning the light on again and saying, hey, consider this, one of the things that we bring up is just this idea that you're not selling out to be able to consider something that you've not considered before.
Right.
Nobody's trying to convert you to a thought process that's meant to ruin you. There's an experience in considering that allows for growth in areas that you may not have thought were possible.
Right.
And that's all we're trying to do here. I mean,
Yeah. And then not to cause it to wreck you either, though. I mean, like,
yeah,
because of that whole, as I mentioned, the pendulum swing. We're not trying to get you to go, like all automatically in like a snap of a, like that's not the point. The point is to get you to think.
yeah,
Critical thinking.
yeah, yeah.
And more people need to have critical thinking skills.
Well, and then then it comes to mind that to be a proponent for critical thinking, a lot of times then what happens is people who don't like how you're thinking say you're just critical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where not only in thought and ideas to consider what is taking place, but then how does that move into action?
Right.
So we start at this level because we're trying to come to at least a discussion around how do you have faith and how do you believe in aliens? And actually, you told me this morning you don't believe in aliens.
Yeah, I'm still unconvinced, I guess. I mean, so to me, I still, there's another, as I mentioned, like before we hit record, that there's, Pentagon's releasing another document soon about UFOs or UAOs or whatever they want to call them now.
Yeah.
All it is, we're talking about unidentified objects. I mean, and so my wife and I, my mother-in-law, father-in-law were here, and we were just discussing it. And Heather's like, well, like, you believe in UFO? Like, yeah, I believe in UFOs, but I said, you don't want to have the next discussion on whether or not I believe in alien life form. I said, right now, I'm still not convinced that there's alien life form yet. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm not closing myself off to it.
Yeah.
I said, but I also don't know if I have enough, evidence to be able to balance that.
Yeah.
She said, well, what about, the ancient, Egyptians or whatever that had hieroglyphs of, and I was like, well, show me then. Where are the hieroglyphs? Where, and because, if there was a UFO during ancient, and we definitely weren't there technologically.
Right.
So, like, what could that be other than aliens? I'm like, cool. Like, let's actually discern that that's actually what the hieroglyph is about.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's still not going to be enough evidence if you're saying there was a hieroglyph that was, thousands of years old.
Yeah.
Like, or multiple thousands.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I still, so I'm still in that camp. Like, as I mentioned to Chris, was like,
yeah,
I still in that. And what leads me to, like, why is it that the government's sharing this now? And there's always got to be an ulterior motive with them.
Yeah.
Like, you tried to be able to tell us that we were crazy for, 100 years, that there were no UFOs, that there was nothing that was unidentified, and now you're telling us that there is. Why? That's what I'm trying to be able, because I believe that there's so many accounts of these UFOs now that are coming to light, and now we're told that it's there. Like, so why now?
Yeah.
And is it alien? And if it is, like, I'd really like to know how you know it's alien.
Yeah. And
if it's not alien, then who's putting this technology out there that doesn't show any signs of compulsion? Compulsion from the ship, like a normal, like, jets that we have.
Right.
That you if you're catching a jet and on night vision or whatever, like, you're gonna see that there's exhaust.
Yeah.
You're not seeing it in some of these UFOs.
Yeah.
So we know that there's technology then that we're capturing that's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to put that then into the realm of alien technology versus just technology that we haven't put out there that we know or another nation knows?
Right.
So I don't know. So that's where I was, the discussion goes with me. I'm not against understanding aliens.
Right.
I just don't believe that we have enough evidence of it, because what do you even find? They try to, well, there's water on Mars, and so therefore that's, there's alien. Like, no, like just because there's water, or even if there was, but you still haven't shown me a little green man,
right,
or woman or being.
Yeah.
Like, so that I want to be able to, test, verify.
Yeah.
Before we're having a conversation that's saying, I believe that aliens exist.
Oh, man. So there you have it, folks. I want to bring it to you. Even though we're going to consider these things, just know exactly where Phil stands on that.
Right.
This is probably a fault to my personality.
Yeah.
I really haven't drawn a conclusion. I mean, I just like talking about it.
Right.
It's the undiscovered, unsolved mysteries.
Right.
It's there has just always been something in me when it comes to science fiction, and then a lot of close listeners would say, Steve, it's science fiction. I'm like, yeah, it is science fiction. Totally agree. It's science fiction. And yet, how does fiction inform reality? And I'll go back again. When Star Trek first came out, and there's these little dudes pushing buttons on their chest, or they're flipping a thing, open to be a walkie-talkie, like that. I mean, now, will they vaporize us and move us to a different thing? Can they lock? I mean, who knows? But I mean, there's some informing that allowed in another human's mind to say, oh, well, we have rotary phones. Wonder what that would be like to make it portable. What would need to be in place for that to happen?
Right.
And now we have cell towers all around, Hey, interesting. Really side wacky conversation.
Yeah.
Do you realize that if you have Amazon, that Amazon is going to put into the protocols of their equipment to be able to share your bandwidth, so that people who don't have internet are going to be able to have free internet, and it's going to be linked off of your internet that you're paying for.
I have not heard this.
Yeah. And there's a certain deadline that you can opt out of it, but if your TV uses Amazon as a exchange, it's going to be able to, where it's going to propel your internet. And this is not a conspiracy.
It's not a secret.
No. You can Google, how is Amazon using my technology to give my bandwidth away? Google that, and then you can find out. Now, personally, Amy and I, we don't have a Siri or Alexis or Alexi. Is it
Alexa?
Alexa. Yeah. See, that's how far removed I am from that. I'm like, yeah. But
so
we know.
You turn your Siri off on your phone?
Well, see, now there's the deal. So I completely know that my phone is the major source of information and intel on Steve-O. So, yeah.
So what was I was hearing with the ads, you always say that the phone is listening.
Yeah.
So they were actually saying that it's not even the phone that listens. Like they even study with, so like if your phone is always with your wife's phone, right? And they're saying, that there's a common linkage. That means that, even things that you search for or buy, whether or not you ever speak of it, could also show up on her, whatever things that she might use.
Really?
Like if like she's on Amazon, whether or not you've ever talked about it, like it could show up then on hers.
Huh. Wow.
And so they say that it's because it's sharing the same, like you're in the same band
yeah.
with, so there was a guy who shared it and he said, and the way he verified it was he went and spent he was there at his mom's house for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he said, after he left, he said he started seeing his mom's toothpaste that she used and she bought. They never talked about what toothpaste she used.
Right.
So the phone wasn't listening, but it was sharing now.
Huh.
Because he was there in constant communication with that same bandwidth for a while, that it all of us automatically started to share. So in his Twitter feed, when you get the sponsored ads on Twitter, like it was this toothpaste when he was on, what it was, I don't know, whatever, Instagram, whatever, like these things would pop up like, hey, he's like, I don't use the toothpaste. This is my mom's toothpaste.
Right.
But yeah, so he said it even goes beyond. It's not even just them listening to your ads. It's that, you're sharing space. And if you looked at it, it means like, so my wife or my, my son who's using it, like, the things that I search for, the things that I bought on, like could show up in their ad space somewhere else.
Wow.
Even if we've never talked about it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's beyond me.
Right.
I don't know how this stuff works.
Yeah. I mean, this is and it's kind of genius marketing and ads. I mean, like that, it is genius, like, because they are now having to work less for selling us what we need or don't need.
Right. Yeah. Man, major influence.
Right. So that always brings me to the, when you mention like sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
Science fiction, and so many of the, movies that we see in science fiction, and we're like, I remember, what is it? Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like in the future they were talking about ads popping up in front of you or on the sides of you. I think it was also in Fifth Element with Bruce Willis.
Yep.
And in that advanced future, they were, ads are personalized towards you and they'll just pop up in front of you. Not on your phone, but like actually, like here's this thing that's just gonna. Don't you need this? And so when you're looking at it, like we're not far removed.
No.
Like these things are all, So we're saying yes, it is science fiction, but art imitates life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's coming from somewhere, someone's imagination, someone's mind, and it's gonna be possible.
My mom's studying Ignatius, and she's going through and she's reading a bunch of stuff. And my mom is a spiritual director. The funny part is she was in training to be a spiritual director for, I don't know, maybe 4 years. And one day I walked in the door and I was like, hey, Mom. I'm like, did you realize that spiritual direction, like, was birthed out of the womb of the Catholic Church? And she was like, oh, yeah. She goes, how'd you find out about that? I'm like, I started reading Richard Rohr. She just got this big old smile on her face, and she just was like, that's awesome. And then that's about as far as the conversation went, But, so, and her last visit out to Chicagoland, we were talking about her study of Ignatius. And she's like, yeah, your whole theory on time travel, she's like, falls into this spiritual practice of Ignatius. And we didn't get into like a lot of the detail and stuff like that about that. And I told her, I said, actually it had to do with the eternality of God. I said, that really landed me on the idea of time travel and what time travel really means to me. And she's like, that's so crazy. Who told you that? I said, nobody told me that.
Right.
I mean, it was in discovering the eternality line of God that, based on God being eternal present in all moments, at every moment. I said, then if in my faith structure, I believe not only is the Christ in me, but then the Christ, upon him leaving earth as Jesus the Christ, then gave the promise of the Holy Spirit. Well, then if I have that combination within me and I'm willing to have faith to that level, then that all that means is I just have to tap into the eternal to consider time, which means that God is already in any moment that I'm going to live. And so if I ask him for direction about what's going to take place 4 days from now, he's already in the moment. And so anyway, she cracked up. She goes, nobody taught you that. I'm like, well, it was through the study of like the eternality of God. But once again, here's where, if we want to use the proper religious term, transformation occurs. We're being transformed daily. And in that, there's things that I know right now that I didn't know 20 years ago.
Right.
And it's transformative. It's the information is then brought within, and as things come in, then they begin to shape you, to change you, to move you. And, people who are closer to science would say, oh, it's evolution. We're evolving. As a people group, how can we look around and not say that there is evolving occurring?
Oh, yeah.
And devolving, there's as many things that shape and there's other things that destroy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of that seems pretty obvious as far as, I mean, like we should always be changing.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have the same, even the skin cells that we have, they're all new.
Right.
We don't have the same ones we had when we were born.
Right. Right.
We're automatically changing in that area too.
It's proven. Your nose and your ears, the cartilage.
Yeah.
Those are the only two things in your body after you reach for full maturity. They're the only things that keep growing. That's why people's noses look larger when they're older, and their ears too.
Wow.
I'm like,
cartilage.
Yeah. That works. That works.
It certainly does.
So then how do you, I know we covered the alien thing.
Right.
But how do you reconcile your faith with the idea of these unsolved mysteries, and how can you be okay with the unsolved mysteries of God and then yet have faith in God, or have a faith, I don't know, what do you want to call it? A faith structure, or a faith,
sure,
or faith period. Just,
Yeah.
and then the idea of, do you believe that dinosaurs were created? Were they destroyed? Or are they real? When is Jurassic Park really hitting us in real time?
Yeah, there's so many questions there. Because even what I would look at with aliens is that even if there's the possibility of aliens, and some people would say if aliens exist, therefore this whole model of faith is thrown out the window. You got to start over, because all of a sudden you're introduced to something that was not shown or not seen here, and so therefore it's going to destroy the system. And I'm like, well, why?
Right.
Why is that the case? I mean, and my wife, who is she's a believer and a believer in aliens. Mm-hmm. She believes that, alien life forms exist. And so when you're put it in that area, so it doesn't destroy her. What it says is is there something that could be even beyond this? Yeah, like there can be. And what are we going to do with that? We're going to say, oh, so like it's okay. Like, so if we believe an unseen deity that's going to be outside, and as you mentioned before, already existing in space and time, else like has been
Right.
in the past and in the future,
Right.
and is already there and is already here. Like, so if we already believe that and hold to that, then we're saying there's nothing that this unseen deity doesn't know.
Right.
Why is it that we want to know then? Why is it that we're saying, is there, like all of a sudden this something that we didn't know exists is like this destroys the idea of God? Why? We're saying if we already know, like God's already been there then. God already knew, like God, if there are aliens, if there's a multiverse, there's multiple universes that we would say, are possible, even though we can't see them right now. We would say that, and our universe is expanding. Is there room for this? Absolutely, there's room for it. Now, I know that there's some people who try to be able to destroy this mystery and call these alien life forms demons. Some people look at aliens and call them demons. And they're like just, another, like Satan's army that's, going to show them. Like, I don't, like, that's just a theory to me. Like, you're just going to throw out a theory. And if you're trying to be able to create a conspiracy on it, then yes, it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
But, like, there's no proof of that. There's no understanding of that.
Yeah.
Like, why is it that we have to destroy the mystery? Let's not destroy it. Let's continue to say, all right, if it's still unexplained, we're cool with it. We can ask questions, talk about it, but like it's not going to destroy the faith structure because we're saying God's big.
Yeah.
Way bigger than any of us.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to put our human attributes on a unseen deity who is much bigger than what we can ever imagine. And then we're saying, but we want to make it like, like that. There's too much blending here. There's too many things that we're trying to bring together. Like, we're going to just say, like, if those things exist, we already know that this unseen deity already knows.
Yeah.
And so what can we do with it? We can say, like, it doesn't make sense with my current worldview.
Right.
But.
And for people way back in the day, before Columbus ravished North America, South America, all of that.
Right.
There was a very limited knowledge of the current world. Mm-hmm. And so this is where history can inform us to actually consider how is our world limited? Our view of what's, and how is it limited where we aren't aware of what really is around us?
Right.
And then I'll go back for those of who missed the story on a different podcast. I had a theology teacher that taught us that angels, why we don't see them is because we don't have the receptor, like transmitter receiver, and I would just challenge people who are listening to say how many unseen things are around you,
right.
But it doesn't negate that it really happens. Again, I listen to the radio on my commute every time I'm driving. I don't see a radio signal. They talk about the speed of light. I just know when the sun's shining. I don't see how fast it's moving. That doesn't negate the idea of how fast light travels. And, there's just things that are undiscovered. And so unsolved mysteries, undiscovered things of reality that, we just like, and then there's just something in me. It just makes me giggle. I'm like, I like considering these things that are unknown,
Yeah. And then you brought in dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So I was born in Utah, right? So
Oh,
Utah
yeah.
has a huge section up near, well, like in that area up in northern Utah. There's lots of dinosaur discoveries up there.
Yeah.
Paleontologists lots of paleontologists in that
Dime a
area.
dozen.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, when you're looking at it, and that is it's another hard one to be able to look at, because as the years, right, like current paleontologists would put it like, millions and millions of years prior. Before, and that's the thing with the evolutionary system, is that they're saying, so, like before, like when I was younger, like those years were shorter. It was like, 10 million years ago. And, now it's like 30 million,
Yeah.
40 million, 50 million, and that time frame keeps getting pushed back and back in order to make room for all of the current theory and science. So it's like, well, what is it? There's some people, scientists who are in the, theological realm,
Yep.
who have studied this and said, well, there are current day dinosaurs, right? Turtles, alligators, these are all, creatures that have existed that would even be categorized as a dinosaur.
Yeah.
So could have dinosaurs existed at the same time as people? Well, what dinosaurs? Because there's current ones today. There's people who've studied, the aging process, and
Yep.
and it's like, there's not a there are certain things that are just not always easily understood. When you're looking at dinosaur bones, and when you're looking at prints, and you're saying we want to date them based on our current model or theory, which would be like 40 billion or whatever it is, like ages ago. And you're like, but couldn't it have been formed later? Because some of the formations, the fossils, yes, you want to date them later, but really these could have formed sooner. Like that aging process doesn't always fit your model, and it could be in a different structure. And so I always, question in those areas the same thing. Like, all right, you want to continue to push back the time frame because it makes more sense to you now in the evolutionary process that there had to have been a whole bunch more of death and dying in order to come up with this model of what we have. And I'm like, but could it be different? And I based on what we see, and people have studied some of these things in science, that like the one guy I saw, I think I don't remember, there was a video, but he talked about that there was something, a current day object. I was trying to remember what it was, but like it was formed, and they found, dug for this thing, and it was, they knew the age of this product, whatever it was in there. But there was stone, and it almost fossilized it.
Oh, wow.
And so you're like, so what we know is like that this object isn't that old. So how is it that the fossils could have formed that quick? All of that stuff. And so, you're looking at it and thinking, so what we know is that there are some things even in science that it's unexplainable right now. But based on, if you're coming from that worldview, then how do we explain this? Well, you can't, because it's unexplainable. It was formed differently through different elements. And so what we're like throwing in the mix is like, yeah, there's things that you don't even know the answer to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you dig into it, as many scientists hopefully do, is what happens when your worldview gets rocked? Are you going to continue to just say, well, that's not possible? Or you're saying, no, we need continued study? And I'm saying, I think that there's continued study that still has to be done without just embracing your faith structure as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that we move into the idea that really we would call from all sides this sense of, hey, we don't want anyone to come to the table militantly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's, you're wrong, you have to see it my way. This is, you know, and so, and I wouldn't even say that we like jump on the bandwagon that we're we're militantly anti-militants.
Right.
I make myself laugh. You know, that's not where we want to be. We don't want to create another fight. Mm-hmm. You know, for people who are fighting, and when people are upset about, you know, the consideration of these things. As I bring in these discoverable things, I'm not at odds within myself when it comes to God. I don't know. That's how I'm built. And I don't have to take a stand for God and be standing against, hey, what would happen if? Mm-hmm. You know, do I wish someone would really find the Ark of the Covenant? I mean, yeah, I do. Right. Hey, actually, the good news is Decoded came back on my my.
Was it right after we spoke about it again?
Yes, on demand, and so I'm gonna get in and, you know, be able to look through that and find out more. It's kind of cheesy. Like, I understand why there's only 2 seasons, mm-hmm. But yeah, but and some people, you know, the way they're built, they're like, hey, this is why I have to be. Concerning aliens, I know what I was taught. Hey, there are no aliens.
Right.
You know, why? Well, because Jesus would have to die for them. I'm like, but he already did die. Mm-hmm. So what's the problem? Well, you know, I mean, some alien creature couldn't go to heaven, or, you know, they'd all be damned to hell. I'm like, why? I'm like, you know, and then it kind of along multiverse. Well, if there's another universe, then I'm like, did God send the Christ to be Jesus there?
Right.
You know, I mean, like all this stuff, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, they're dogmatic. There are people who are just born to be dogmatic, mm-hmm. and so anyway,
right.
I have to see the good in them too.
And then you get the dogma police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speak out of turn, you get whacked.
Whack. Whack-a-mole with all these little humans. Uh-huh. Boom, boom, boom. Thank you, Thor. Zeus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you just mixed deities there, Norse and...
Oh, yeah, I picked 2. I mean, it just depends on...
It's
I mean,
intentional.
Well, yeah, if aliens are going to listen to the podcast, mm-hmm. I wanted them to know that there's more than, you know, one. There's Greek mythology. There's mm-hmm. Norse mythology. Mm-hmm. There's Marvel mythology.
There is.
Thank you, Stan Lee.
Uh-huh.
But again, what a mind. Mm-hmm. That Stan Lee not only would come up with the stories, but like all of the things all of around. Oh my gosh, the contemplation of that.
Yeah, I just saw an interview that he did. Now passed away. If you don't know Stan Lee, he's dead.
Yeah.
But Stan Lee was talking about bringing Thor into the Marvel universe, and he said, as he was going through it, he's like, you know what we really need? We need like a god. And that's where he's like, all right, so he went to Greek and Roman mythology, and he said, yeah, I feel like those have been done, Zeus and mm-hmm. Hercules and all of that whole existence of that. He's like, I felt like it was done. He's like, but, you know, and at the time when he created, you know, the thing, he's like, I was thinking Thor. He's like, right out of Norse theology. He said Norse theology, not a lot was being done with it as far as comics or the creation of movies or whatever. And so he was thinking, like Thor's god of thunder.
Yeah.
And he's got a hammer, not just like a,
yeah.
a gun or knives but the god of thunder who has a hammer
Yeah.
that is fit for him and nobody else could use. I mean, he's like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of ways to go with it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So just out of his, like bringing in those different pieces is,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It is. It is. Well, does that... Are there any other pockets around this that you're thinking about?
Yeah, so I mean, going back, so when you mentioned, kind of how you're like, so this doesn't disrupt you either, as far as the, the contemplation of all of these unsolved or unknowns.
Yeah, I think where I really land is there, at least for me, whenever I post our podcast, 50 to 60% of the time I check comedy under the topic. For as much time as I spend in my head musing things, thinking through, processing, we have to remember amusement parks, A being no, musing, thinking. To me, this is amusing. It's entertaining to me as far as a redirection from the reality of this earth. And so whether it's the political systems, whether it's the hardship for humanity, whether it's difficulties, on the flip side, the great joys, the celebrations, and so it doesn't rock my these are the things of spiritual, like, hey, are you wasting your time, Coble, by talking about this stuff? Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a waste. You and I get to contemplate some pretty interesting things. So it's entertaining to me to even, read up on it and think about it and,
right.
See. And so then, I get into the part and I just know that the same voice within me that says, hey, yeah, go in this direction. And when I show up, it ends up working out. Is the same voice that when I test that spirit and say, hey, where's this all land? Like, am I heading in? Like, for instance, for our podcast listeners, we don't spend time talking about the occult.
No.
I don't believe we're ever going to make space or room for that.
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, and so when it comes to, you mentioned like demons. Demonology is a thing that you can find in the sacred texts as far as, God's system in regards to angels and heaven and those that were cast and
right.
Cast out of heaven. And so, like, but our goal isn't to go down the demonology, thriller, occult, dark spiritualism road. That won't be a topic.
Right.
And I feel really good about not ever talking about that.
Sure. Me too.
And so, but
because it's present, we know it's there.
Oh yeah.
And there's people who delve into it,
practice it. And if we get a lot of hate mail on why are you guys skipping over this topic, it's because, well, currently we live in the United States and we have freedom of speech right now.
We do. We have a microphone.
Actually, too.
We do.
And the technology to be able to put a podcast together. Yeah.
We do.
Hashtag privileged. And so, yeah, I mean, I get okay with that. I think that for me, I come back to a more reflective part of making sure that I'm not just thinking about stuff, but how am I in action participating on behalf of this invisible deity, to be able to bring peace and love, not just in word only, but in motion. How am I making sure that I'm not self-centered in the life that I'm currently living?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I move outside of that and towards an emotion of helping others? And so I have other self work as far as like I don't have a problem with. I mean, I know the government keeps information away from us. I know that there are things that have not been discovered. And so I just enjoy a lot about, man, where could this take us? What's going to happen?
Right.
I will watch the next season of The Curse of Oak Island.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if they get to film it and that all happens.
Right.
So I'll probably watch the next episode of Dave Turn's Lost Mine too.
Yeah, I would say sometimes. I mean, you brought up amusement, and I think that's what the part of amusements parks are, is that you don't have to think, you just ride.
Yeah.
But sometimes we do have more of the amusement side and not amusement. I mean, hopefully we also, I mean, it is an opportunity for you to listen, but we want to engage your thought.
Oh, yeah.
We want you to think a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like, the intent would be that we're bringing stuff to the table that'll make you think.
Right.
But how we do it seems comical.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully somebody laughs out. Sometimes when I'm listening to it, I laugh out loud.
I know.
Which makes it probably seem odd while I'm working out.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to just laugh.
And you're like, oh, man, did we really say that? Yeah, the answer is we did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes me laugh.
Yeah. Cracks me up, too.
Yeah.
All right.
What else we got? Anything else for the day?
No. Trying to think. Think. Oh, Tigger.
Eeyore.
Yeah.
Oh, the Pooh universe.
Oh, see. Somebody came up with it.
It's true. Yeah, there's a whole book about the philosophy of Winnie the Pooh. So, like, there's been further musings of Winnie the Pooh after both books and movies of Winnie the Pooh. So there's the philosophy of Winnie the Pooh.
Wow.
I have it if you want to read it.
Really?
I do. I think Heather got it, and then I just started reading it. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But it happens with pretty much every. I mean, I think there's one on The Simpsons too. So
Yeah.
because The Simpsons deals with a lot of religious, thinking, and because I think like Bart and the rest of the family are like Christian, but Lisa's a Buddhist, and so
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I just saw on it's one of the Star Treks, and where they landed, it was this settlement that was super, super far away, and they came to this little church, and then it had all of the major religions. And so there was this group of people that the Red Angel had scooped up and have planted on this planet. And so they had to figure out a way for all of their differences to come together and collectively, and they created an observation of the good of all for them to come together and to be unified. And so it's interesting. And I think that's something that can't be overlooked, is that in major world religions, there are a lot of similarities. And so Rohr is not afraid to embrace the truth that other religions propagate. He just is. He's like, yeah, we can't take ourselves too seriously.
Like using the term enlightenment, which comes from Eastern religion.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, his commitment to solitude and meditation and all of these things would, I guess I question, I mean, if the sacred texts talk about Gnosticism and what is found at the root and the sin of Gnosticism would be just knowledge seekers. And so, but I spoke to that just earlier, and that is, if all we're doing is trying to increase knowledge, we're not being a benefit to anyone. And so you have to marry or bring together these two things of when I get information, what will I do with it? And at least in the faith structure that I follow, there's a motion into action. But I just would recognize that there's nothing of my action that has any merit to it. It's only becoming an ambassador on behalf of said deity towards other human beings.
Right.
No merit. It just is because it's being a good human when you're nice to other people, when you love them, when you choose not to use harsh words. We're doing a project on our patio, and when I got to Home Depot, what I was bringing back to the house needed a truck rental, so I rented a truck, $19.95 for the first 75 minutes, apparently.
Yeah.
And the guys, it was hilarious because I walk into the tool rental place in Deerfield, and there's these three old guys sitting back there. And it just reminded me of my dad's auto shop, and like when he was like, he was a manager of a parts store, and he'd have these mechanics come in, and they'd be playing euchre over lunch, or he'd be eating his sandwich over lunch, and and it just like that vibe. Here's three old codgers just sitting in a circle, and I walk in, and they're like, "Can we help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to rent a truck." "Well, did you buy anything here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I bought something here. Made an online order." "Oh, this is really good. So go out to customer service and see where they're going to bring the order." I'm like, "Perfect." So I go and do that. And he goes, "Because when we start, the clock starts ticking." I'm like, "This will be awesome." He goes, "They'll have it out about the time we bring the truck up, and you'll be good to go." Well, I got to where they were bringing my order, and they didn't have the 5 wooden panels that I needed for the truck. I had like one 2x4 and some 1x8s, and I'm like, "Where's the panels?" And the dude's like, "What panels?" So I pull up on my phone and show him the panels. Well, they can't find the panels. So he's walking back. "Well, maybe I missed the cart." He's like, "Man, we don't have them." In my head, I'm thinking, I think these wooden panels are probably out in the parking lot. Like there's a pile. I said, "There's 126 of them here." I said, "That's what it said online. So what are we going to do?" "Oh, man, I don't know." So anyway, 30 minutes later, who's paying for the truck? This guy. But we got everything all loaded up. And
so it already ate into 30 minutes of the 75.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It just meant that I had the truck for 90 minutes instead of 75. For those of you who are wondering, it's $5.50 for every 15 minutes after the first 75 minutes. So Yeah, go to Home Depot, rent a truck for big stuff. And oh my gosh, dude. By the time we get all this stuff wrangled up there and all tied down and stuff, like, this guy looks at me and goes, "Hey, thank you." I said, "For what?" He goes, "For not blowing up and being angry and mad and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, dude." I said, "There's a lot more stuff happening on these roads in Chicago that make me angry." So I'm not worried about it. Hey, peace be with you. And I said, I just figure I'd like to dish out what I'd like to receive. And he's like, "I can appreciate that." So that's all I'm saying.
But it's easy. It would be easy to have gone the other direction.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And but what benefit? Why? I mean, and I recognize this current structure and state we're in. I mean, I'm an angry person internally, but that doesn't do anybody any good.
Right. So you're gonna take all of that anger, and spew it out on someone who's, defenseless. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and he told me, he's like, "Be honest, I've just been working here for about a month, and I don't have it all down yet." And I'm like, "Well, congratulations on the job."
Right.
I mean, like, you got to get inside other people's lives, and just, it's the empathy part, just to understand. Yeah. And then that's the great thing on my faith system, is that there is this unseen deity who we have conversation every day, And so it's like, "Hey, what am I going to do with this? Can you take this load for me? Because right now it seems unbearable." I'm really talking like a whiny white boy right now. And so please help me get over myself. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I really try not to exert my internal anger either, but
yeah,
most of the time it does come out, especially during traffic in Chicago, like driving behind people in Chicago.
Oh, my word. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an area of growth.
Well, hey, you guys, just want to let you know that we appreciate you listening, and thanks for coming in and being amused and musing with us.
Right.
It's been a delight.
Yeah, and continue. Put your thoughts out there. You got questions? You want to, find that community of people that are going to be green light people? Let's create that. Let's build a sustainable green light people.
Oh man, sustainable green light people.
Right.
While we search for the little green aliens.
Right.
I like
the little green men.
I like the picture of what you're doing right here, man. Uh-huh. I really do.
Right.
Yeah. And if somebody needs to be a president of a new club, you could become the president of Sustainable Green Light People Group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a good cult to lead.
We will talk about cults, not the occult.
Right. We're not going to stay away from cults. We will stay away from the occult. There.
Which is spelled with an O.
Yeah.
But we say it kind of like an A. Occult.
Mm-hmm.
Occult.
That's the English language for
I know.
you.
Derivatives. Yeah.
All right, everybody.
So you're going to get this episode, and we got this finished up as season 2, episode 7. And we're going to crack out. Phil and I are managing some travel time, but we're going to get some more episodes. We're only 3 episodes away from rounding out Season 2. I have a feeling that Season 3 is going to be one of my favorite seasons of every year.
I always like Season 3s.
I like the number 3. And when we get to Season 3, Episode 7, that's one of my favorite numbers, is 37.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's going to happen then.
Well,
it's in the future.
There will be an illumination of the Illuminati.
We were talking about the Illuminati last night too, so
See, it all fits
that's
together.
just another topic we'll get into at some point in time.
It all fits together. All right, for now, we'll say goodbye, and you guys